How you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thanks. Just trying to get this organized.
Good. It's good. It's okay. No problem.
Good to go.
How the
Pretty
hell are
good.
you?
Just rushed out of the forge
Yeah,
to
yeah.
join you. Yeah, been doing a bit of graft.
How is it? How has it been? COVID. How's that been treating you?
Um, well, most of my business was in creative engagement in schools, festivals, as you know, and events. Like just missed the plowing last week. Um, Pretty much cancelled out 80% of my business.
Yeah, it's
Tourism,
terrible.
every angle that I was working towards or had, sort of focused my business plan on, um, the carpet was pulled. But
Did you get any help from the government or anything? Because you were considered an artist, wouldn't it be, or would it be a business?
well, my status was self-employed, so there was and is some support available in different packages if
Right.
you have the wherewithal to go through the paperwork, which can be a bit of mental torture sometimes.
Sure, I get it. Sometimes it's easier just to like. I think maybe they want you to be like, do you know what? To hell with it. I get by with what I have, rather than like if they made it easier on you to get this type of thing, to get the paperwork right, then it'd be a whole lot better for people. You know.
But I think the choice has always been, and all the way through my life. So whatever turns up, um, it's not the first time I had to reinvent myself as a result of external things that I was powerless around.
Right.
So it's just about refocusing, transitioning. I started making smaller stuff, as you've probably seen on Instagram and that,
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
and making Celtic and iron jewelry and creating a whole new business stream with that, and focusing on online sales, upgrading my website. Yeah, just take a different direction.
How do you find the online interaction? How do you find yourself working online as opposed to? I know you're still making these items and they're wonderful, but how do you find is the when people see them at a festival, it's completely different. But when you sell them online, do you find that harder, or do you find that people are more engaging?
Well, it's. I think we live in that world now where people are very visual. Everything's about video and sort of that type of interaction. You know, it's
Yeah.
almost a bonus to meet the customer. You know, so people look at it and they either swipe right or swipe left. They like it or they don't like it. That's where society has gone. So I just make my stuff because I love making it, and if somebody else enjoys it, it's a bonus. Um, with regards to online sales, okay, there's marketing and strategy and all of that stuff that you have to get involved with if you want to sort of create an online shop and stuff, and it goes with the territory, and you can do it and be successful. If that's what the world is saying I need to do to make a living, I got to go with it.
Mm.
I'm probably much better and much happier at the anvil than I am at the computer. But you know, still have a couple of brain cells running, so I can learn a bit.
Well, I think Google is great, but I think as you said, you'd be better off at the anvil. You're better off. I think as a human being, we're all better off traveling around to these places, like and meeting new people. Like I met you back at Face Fest, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And
Tullamore.
look at how much the world has changed even then. Like you missed the plowing there 3 days ago or last week. You
Yeah,
know, it's a killer, really. It really is. You know.
I
But
know, but
all we
well,
can do is
there's
do it
nothing we
online
can
now.
do, really, is there, Ciaran? You
Sorry.
know, there's nothing we can do, no matter what our personal situation or point of view is. You know, we
Yeah.
we've been given some guidelines, that we have to sort of follow, and you know, what can we do? At the start of the COVID sort of, when it was announced as a pandemic, I started reading about it. I started looking up, basically I had no knowledge of, what a virus was or how it was contagious or however it works. So I started reading a lot in virology, and I was getting really into it. And I thought to myself, I'm probably halfway through the first semester of a degree now. I'm either going to go the whole hog or bail out. So I just switched the telly off, and I thought, I think when the Six Nations was cancelled, I switched off RTE, and I've turned it back on once or twice to watch football since.
I think the less we know with this kind of thing, and I don't mean that as like we need to know everything about it, but we need to know. If we know too much, we will end up, I think, going crazy, because we'll be looking at our neighbor thinking that person is not doing what they're supposed to do, and here I am not doing what I'm doing and following the guidelines, and that will cause an unrest amongst neighbors, amongst families, amongst relations, and that will, again, as people, we all need to communicate a lot better around this thing. And I think it's kind of getting to a stage where everybody's blowing the whistle on everybody, I think, a little bit.
I don't know, because I don't live in that sort of community, and I've got great neighbours, but I live in isolation. I'm down at the end of a country lane with a forestry around me and 1,000 acres of bog behind me. Nice. So I've been in quarantine for about 12 years now, in isolation.
And you're the happiest person in the world.
Yeah, no, it's really lovely. But I think, life, brings sort of adversity to your door,
Sure.
And, it can either make you a victim or a hero. And I think it's your choice,
Yeah. I guess
there's nothing we can do about it. I'd love to go on holiday somewhere warm at the moment, but, it's not on,
Yeah. So most people are so ignorant to that, though. They're like, I'm young, I can do it, but what about your neighbor that's elderly, or your relation that has a problem with immunity and
Yeah, I mean, the elderly and people that have, some secondary illness that a virus could really affect them, have a serious negative impact on their health.
Sure.
And they should be protected all the time,
Yeah.
I sometimes did think, with the government and that, because I would be, maybe a little bit mistrusting around politicians, if I'm really honest.
Sure.
A few years ago, before COVID, before it was ever heard of, were they really looking after the elderly, what happened to their pensions? What, would they not give them a few extra quid a week? The same with nurses. People that have turned out to be real heroes, they wouldn't even give them like a few euro raise, and I think, it's hard to trust the people that profit from your illness, like big pharma and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
When they start talking about stuff, my scientist is right and your scientist is wrong. These sort of arguments start to head up, and you think, well, do you know what? I can't trust a word you're saying to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean, we have to rely on the science,
It's kind of what got us here in the first place. And I think it's kind of what's going to get us through this, whether it's like, but if we can't figure out a common cold or a flu, then we don't have any hope against this. Like, we're getting to a point now where, like, before COVID, if you had a cold or a flu, you would go about your business normally. Yeah. Whereas now, if you have suspected coronavirus, or if say you have the flu now, you're literally, don't come near anybody. So our minds have changed, but I think, like, as you said, with my scientists being better than your scientists, it's like, I think it's all about who you listen to, and whether you listen to fact or science or magic or whatever. I think you have to. Sometimes you get lost in that conspiracy theory world or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think You know, that's not a way to go, and it's sort of a lot of self-fulfilling prophecies with that. But I think that people that have a beef with the world have a propensity to, you know, to sort of lean towards conspiracy theories and that. And, you know, it doesn't really help anybody, you know. It
Yeah,
doesn't really help anybody. However, saying that, I wonder, you know, with all the geniuses and scientists and experts and medical practitioners that we have in the world, um, you know, like you said, can we not come up in a short space of time with something to keep us all safe? This is a world problem. This is not just like little Ireland on our own, you know,
sure,
with a small
absolutely.
economy trying to fight this. This is the whole world, you know.
Yeah,
We can send a probe to Mars, yeah, but we can't make a tablet to cure somebody with a virus.
exactly,
I know
exactly.
what I know what's going on, you
You
know.
see, that's the thing. It seems to be this big hidden, like some people, the conspiracy theorist side would say, look, they're controlling us. They're shutting down our borders to keep us in, and you know, but like you're in Ireland, where relatively you can travel around Ireland unless you're in a lockdown situation, right? And that this is like, think about the broader picture. Would you rather be in a country where you don't know the language, or where you don't know the food or whatever, like, you know?
Mm.
This whole thing of, oh, I'm going to go on a holiday and leave Ireland, but hang on, you have to come back, and you know, there it could be a completely different Ireland in the next 6 months or a year, you know.
Absolutely.
And I think everybody needs to just sit down and say, look, separate fact from, like, conspiracy theories are more of are more of an opinion rather than take it as fact. Like, oh, I know this guy that's in the government that said that he leaked it or whatever. Like, where is that fact? You know,
Mm.
otherwise you're just spinning a story. Like, like it's like a movie plot. You know, it's crazy.
I think people are generally suspicious, you know, of their
Yeah,
governments, you know. I don't think that's any, you know, secret. And I think it's much easier to, you know, to fall on the side of mistrust rather than trust.
mm,
Um, because, you know, in history, we've seen it, you know,
yeah,
they don't really stand up well, you know, like what happened with the church in Ireland, you know.
yeah, absolutely.
We were all shuffled around for years, you know, living in fear. And this is another sort of fear based
Yeah,
agenda, as far as I can see. I've never seen so much, even when I go to pump diesel in my van, you know, COVID's on me all the time. No matter where I go, there's a sticker here, a sticker there.
yeah, yeah.
I never seen that coverage for other illnesses. I never seen it for cancer, which has been wiping out our friends and family for the last years, you
Yeah,
know.
it's so, like, we seem to just lose our morality more so, like, we wouldn't go over to a neighbor and give that, like, if they were vulnerable, we wouldn't go and deliver their groceries, where we'd be more like, okay, I'm staying inside, you stay inside, you stay over there, I'll stay over here. I
Mm.
really think we lost our human compassion,
Well,
you know.
I think things like this push us away from each other, you know.
Yeah,
It's
we
saying
should.
don't go there, you know. Don't shake hands, don't hug, you know.
Yeah,
It's the opposite to like what you'd really feel like a kind, loving society would do, you know, or how they would behave with each other. But you know, like I said, I'm better off. I'm better off by the anvil, just hammering a bit of steel and making something, and you know, that's where I feel most peace, and you know, it's a very relaxing thing to do.
yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to that. How long have you been at the anvil for, and talk me through how you got into it, because you're the only blacksmith, and honestly, that I would know.
Yeah,
And I
and
think you know, so yeah, talk me through that
well,
history of you.
there's not many of us in Ireland working full time as blacksmiths and making a living at it. I mean, years ago, if you looked at an ordnance survey map, you would see, you know, maybe a forge in every village, and in the big towns, maybe three or four around the town, specializing in different aspects of blacksmithing. And I think now you'd be lucky to find two or three in every county. Um, it's just, you know, it was a natural progression as well. You know, engineering came in,
Mm.
electric welders came in, garages sort of took the place of forges, engineering plants took the place of ironworks,
Yeah.
and it was sort of, you know, it's kind of phased out in a way. I grew up in County Wicklow, and there was a small forge by the river there, and I used to go there and watch the blacksmith when I was really young. I'm talking about, like, you know, when I was 7, 8 years of age. I
Cool.
just watch him and I was fascinated. He just had really like an old wooden shack beside the river, down by the bridge. And you know, those early memories of him just in there, and I could hear the bellows going, and you could just see through the door. There was no lights in there. You just see the heated steel. And I was intrigued, like I was intrigued that he could get these bars and beat them and bend them and make horseshoes and latches and all these things. And you know, I just thought it was really brilliant. I actually, when I was young, I thought it was kind of magic, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
to see the sparks dancing in the fire and all. Sentimentalist, but you know, I sort of got a real love for it, and it got into me. And
Yeah.
in later years, when I was able, I used to go and help him and hold bits of steel and work the bellows for him and stuff. And I didn't take it up, you know, when I went to school and went to college and that. Um, you know, it wasn't a career path, you know,
Really, yeah.
and well, at that time it was all, you know, um, career advisors and stuff like that, and you know, um, somebody should have advised them on the career, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I ended up sort of doing something completely different, and heading out into the world. I traveled a lot, but I always had it in the back of my head, you know. I always thought, you know, one day I
Yeah.
wouldn't mind, you know, turning my hand to that. And after a load of different careers and businesses and traveling, you know, mostly all around the world, doing different jobs and working, um, I came back to Mayo and
Mm.
bought this little place here and decided to set up the blacksmithing. That was in 2007, and I've been
Very cool.
going strong ever since.
That's great.
It's
It,
just something I had a love for, you know, a passion about.
yeah.
And I'd worked in in London in different projects and that, working with young people at risk of offending and homelessness, and people with a lot of complex needs.
Yeah.
Um, I worked as a counselor for quite a number of years, and you know, studied a bit of psychotherapy and stuff. And then I taught, when I came back, I run programs here
Mm-hmm.
using the blacksmithing element as a way to creatively engage. So it's, the blacksmithing is not just about making things in steel. It's about giving people an experience, you know,
Yeah.
giving people an experience that, where they can sort of be encouraged to probably look at themselves and look at their way of life and see what they're doing and how they're living, how they're showing up, and you know,
Mm.
what choices they're making, what results they're getting. So it's a bit more than the village smithy, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That was always my idea. My idea in life and my ideology is to encourage people to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is. Like when I seen you at the Face Fest, it was my first time to see anything like that. Because I always thought it was an art that you'd only see in the movies that died out, and that would be more of like kind of it was the guy on the edge of town that would just do the odd bits to get by. But when
Yeah,
I seen the amount of people that came to your stall that day, and even you invited me in to see, because you could see how interested I was.
yeah.
It's amazing the process that you go into. Like, how hot does it get at that anvil? Like,
How?
how warm or how hot does it get at that anvil?
It depends what work you're doing. Like I was restoring um, gates last week with a friend of mine, Aquila Cooper from Dublin, and the anvil was still hot like 3 hours after we finished working because we were working on big chunks of steel, so the heat's just transferring from the steel into the anvil.
Yeah.
But you know, you have a fire going all day. It's quite a cozy job in the winter.
Yeah, I bet. I
You're
bet. Yeah.
you're standing beside a big blazing fire, you know, working in a t-shirt when it's snowing outside. It's lovely.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
it
it's
looks really good. Yeah.
a nice environment. My way is I just go in, put on a playlist, hit the playlist, and
And do
start
it.
working. I'd be
Yeah.
found singing, you know, along to songs and just working. It's the kind of work. It's like a meditation. Some of it is quite repetitive,
Mm.
you know. So you just sort of go with the flow.
It's cool. And like you said, the projects that you've worked on, like you're doing the gates now and that kind of thing, are a lot of the gates and a lot of the steel, the iron works and crafting works that you see around, would they be all machine made now, or how would they? Are they all crafted from a massive industrial size, and then they bring you in to patch it up or repair it, or what way does that work?
No, well, there's heritage ironwork all around Ireland. We have a rich history of it, you know.
Yeah,
From you know, go into any town, any village, you'll see the church gates, the church railings, the graveyard gates. You know, they're
mm,
nearly all forged, hand forged gates. You know,
yeah,
um, back in the wartime, you know, we were neutral, so our steel wasn't taken and recycled to make, you know, tanks or whatever other countries done with it. And even around Dublin, you'll see around the Georgian houses the railings and stuff. We
yeah,
have a we have a really rich history, really fantastic history of ironwork. So there's a certain way that needs to be restored. You know,
yeah, 100%.
it's shameful in a few places around Ireland. It's quite shameful. They've pulled out and cut out that old ironwork and replaced it with sort of fabricated bars,
Yeah,
um, or you know, some user-friendly type railing. Basically, that's about cost. You know, people just don't have the budget because restoring or repairing an old gate using traditional blacksmithing methods is really labor intensive.
I
You know,
bet. Yeah,
it's really labor intensive, and you know, it's it builds up, you know, the budget in man hours or woman hours. Hey, there's a
but
few
that,
women blacksmiths. I can't leave them out of the picture.
but that kind of stuff would last forever. Like, how often do you get called in to say, look, I need work on a gate, or I need work? You know, I'm sure if it's done right, it would last for a long time,
Well,
unless the weather
the
or what
blacksmith's
would be the
gate will
factors.
probably last you. You know, it'll see you through your life. You might
Mm,
have to throw a coat of paint on it, you know, 15 years down the line or something. And a fabricated gate will start to disintegrate pretty quickly, you know.
yeah,
Probably start in 3 years, probably be wrecked in 6 or 8 years. You know, I'm not running down fabricators. I'm just saying the methods and the steel and the way it's forged. We just produce a better product, you know.
yeah. But I mean, there's a lot to be said for handmade or hand forged rather than fabricated or mass produced. It's like anything. It's like a desk is better handmade out or carved out of a tree than it is plywood or whatever, you know.
Of course. But
Yeah.
that's a good way to look at it.
Like if I was a business owner, I definitely want to say, look, because to protect the primary of your business, you definitely need to have good structure, and that's where the forge comes into it, like, you know. And as you said, if it lasts a lifetime, or if, you know, there's definitely something to be said. So is the history of forging at risk of, are we at risk of losing it, or what's going on?
Well, it definitely declined over the previous sort of 10 years. You know, the whole world is unpredictable now with COVID, so that puts a totally different spin on it. But
Yeah.
there was some kind of a revival, I feel, you know, in the last 3 years, maybe 3 to 5 years, mainly because programs like Forged in Fire, you know, have you ever
Yeah.
seen that program, like the blade making
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
competitions
I've
and
seen it.
stuff? And I got a lot of phone calls and a lot of people interested to come along and have a go based on the fact that they'd seen that program. And I
Cool.
think as well, people like myself who travel the country doing demonstrations and showing the craft off, um, my, you know, a big part of my business is keeping the craft alive and trying to pass it on and trying to educate people about it. It won't die, not in our lifetime anyway.
Yeah.
There's quite a few of us there, you know, and we're passing on the skills. So, yeah, but compared to where it was, but like back in bygone days, the blacksmith was perceived as a very noble person in society because he was like making tools, making farm machinery, repairing it, and just so many things
Cool. Yeah.
that was actually, you know, attributed to blacksmithing. He became, you know, I don't know if you ever see me. Sometimes I wear a bowler hat and a cravat when I'm forging at the festivals.
Yeah, I could have seen you in
It
your gear.
throws
Yeah.
it throws the people sometimes, but in, you know, I dress with a waistcoat and in a kind of a vintage style. But
Mm.
back in the day, the blacksmith would have been revered, you know, and somebody like a surgeon who said, "Oh, if you've got a bad kidney or something, you know, I can remove your kidney." You'd think, "Hey, no chance," you know. Whereas now, you know, the surgeon is there and the blacksmith's almost gone. So that's just life, you know,
Yeah.
and it's just how we evolve, you know.
And again, I guess because it's easy, and it's unfortunately the it's cheaper to get the cheaper stuff than it is to get a good hand forge that would last forever. A lot of people just want stuff quick, just want
Yeah.
stuff simple done. How long would it take to craft a project, depending on the size, or like?
Really depends on what outcome you're trying to achieve. But I think there's a major problem nowadays. You know, everything seems to be about funding. Yeah.
Yeah,
And we live in that mindset of you know, well, we can only get X amount of funding, you know, and that's based on all this, you know, sometimes crazy criteria. However, I rather park that word completely, yeah,
mm,
and call it investment, you know,
yeah,
because when a blacksmith is making you something, you're investing, you know, you're
yeah,
investing, you're going to enjoy the piece. It's still going to be there for your kids, you know, they're going to enjoy it. So it's an investment in your assets, really.
true. Yeah, I think I have a piece belong to you that I got at the festival there in Charleville. Um, it's sad to see like that festivals and vintage fairs and all that. It's really sad to see that stuff slipping away. Because
Yeah,
even I know Charleville has a rich history, and it's the perfect backdrop for a vintage festival, all that stuff. But it's so difficult to get the insurance. This is the problem. Like, they want to have you in there, but yeah, it costs a couple of grand. Like, again, funding rather than investing. That
yeah,
will save the castle, that will make, you know, allow it to get the new doors or the new bits and bobs. It's so unfortunate that this is how it's come to funding down, rather than, you know, whatever happens, just having a festival, splitting the profits, go here, you know, go towards the vendors, go towards the organizers. You know, we've lost
I've
our way.
lost.
Sorry, just I was charging up, put my phone on charge there. But I think you're right in saying that the funding and this whole thing of, there's always someone to answer to, in terms, like, if I wanted to go and apply for put this podcast on a radio station, the overheads are insane, you know, just to get
Yes.
one answer, yes or no, you know.
Yeah, it's a strange world where they fund people rather than invest in them. You know,
Yeah,
you know, when it comes to that, I don't know. I don't know where that way of thinking brings us in society. You know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I think we lose out as a result of it. You know, and people lose out, and sometimes the most vulnerable people amongst us lose out as a result of that mindset. But did you make something with me at a Face Fest?
I think I got a couple of swings of the yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
amazing. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
quite a lot of people like to come in and have a go and just try it out and you know, turn their hand to it. I've had I've had from 5 year olds to like 85 year olds do
Class.
workshops with me. Yeah, and
It's amazing. Yeah.
yeah, it's fantastic to see.
But it doesn't. There's no like discrimination of age when it comes to this kind of thing. Like, you can do it no matter what your age is. Again, obviously, you wouldn't let a 10-year-old go at it, but you would definitely encourage that whole creativity of it. Like you said, when you were younger, you saw it as magic more so than,
Yeah,
you know. And I think a lot of adults kind of want to go back to that as well. I feel like since Instagram and, like you said, TV and that kind of thing has put such a positive effect on the crafting and on the blacksmith community and that kind of thing. How has Instagram worked out for you? Like,
yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I just have to I have to build a strategy, you know, for online sales. At the moment, I'm upgrading my website and creating a shop, an online shop. It's it also takes a lot of your time, you know. It takes a lot of time in front of the computer, which, you know, is not really where I want to be, you know. I'd rather be in the forge making stuff. I'm also not in a position to employ somebody to do it. So, you know,
yeah,
when you're self-employed, as you know yourself, you're
100%.
everything.
Well,
You know,
that's it. Yeah, I
you know.
think like I think like as well, it's good for you to learn technology, and I think it's really important to have that savviness. You don't need to be a whiz kid on a computer anymore, because sometimes it just does it for you. You
Yeah,
just
of
put up
course.
the information and away you go.
It's
But
that bit when it doesn't that puts me in trouble.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. And it can be so complicated to go back and correct something. But that again, I remember years ago starting off online, and I remember trying to upload a video on YouTube, and it was so complicated. Whereas now it takes three buttons: upload, you select the photo, you upload it, and you save it, and away you go. That's it. Whereas it was a whole program back in, and I'm talking about 2015, 15 years ago now, like at the dawn of the internet and YouTube and that kind of thing, you know. But you're keeping well anyway, and everything is. You said about reinventing yourself. How how do you go about reinventing something that again is so like, you need an audience to see it, so you need your interaction from an audience. So how does that interact? How do you reinvent yourself from that?
Well, I think, it's not the first time, I've been at that rodeo. I've had to reinvent myself through, through many different parts of my life. So I think the more you do it, the easier it gets. And I think what a lot of people would fear is just change, and change and where it's taking you. Whereas I probably see it as adventure,
Yeah,
and just make out a plan and follow through on it. And I don't know what guides people, in life, or what they rely on to sustain them. But I think, the simple sort of principles that my mother and grandmother shared with me are the things that come back to me now about, like kindness and stuff like that. You know,
mm,
is it easier? Is it easier to ask for permission or forgiveness? You know,
yeah. That's what
that's
it
your
comes down to. Yeah,
that's your choice. You know what I mean? And I spent quite a bit of time asking for forgiveness. So
sure.
now I find it a lot easier to ask for permission,
Yeah,
and and especially with yourself. To ask yourself. And to
mm,
challenge yourself and to go through with things. And I suppose the different adversities that I've found myself going through in life has sort of equipped me with a lot of transferable skills. So if that's the way of the world, if I've
yeah.
got to go online, if I've got to create a new community, in order to make my business work, it's just another challenge. I'm never short of ideas. I think I was just, that's in my DNA. I was just chipped that way on the way in. you know.
Mm.
So I would be very grateful to God you know, for how I am and how I've shown up in life and been able to work with my hands.
Yeah,
You
it's a
know,
blessing. Yeah,
it's a real blessing. It
yeah.
really is. And sometimes I don't really understand what it means to be, you know, blessed in that sense. But
Mm.
I definitely understand gratitude. You know,
I'm sure. Yeah,
I feel very grateful for a lot of the simple things. Been able to have an idea in my head, go into the forge, work with it until it commands a physical presence in front of me.
mm.
And then the real bonus is somebody comes along and says, "Hey, that's quite nice,"
Yeah.
and they pay me for it. And I think that's a very, blessed life to have. It's a very special life to have.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, you're working for yourself. It's your art. It's your lifestyle that you've created for yourself. I think a lot of people lose themselves in the rat race of like, okay, I need to climb the corporate ladder, but there's nothing to show for that, right? You might have a lovely car, you might have a lovely house, you might have an amazing lifestyle of money and wealth, but at the end of the day, if your self, if your own self is not truly happy, then you're not happy. You're just in a rat race or in a carousel, and you're just going round and round. And it's 9 o'clock, get up and go to work, come home at 6, 7, watch TV, go again. It's just a cycle of it, like, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter what you have in your bank account, you know.
Yeah,
If you even if you think for a second that having a big bank account is going to give you a happy life, then you're probably a lot more lost than you even know you are, you know.
yeah, and that was my point. It's like I think in a way, and I always say this, but COVID has really kind of brought the people back down from living in the clouds right down into perspective and like stay at home, stay grounded. I'm not saying it's a blessing because I know people have lost families and stuff like that, but I think in terms of coming back down and realizing, okay, I'm only one person. I can survive in my house. I can communicate with my family, and that's the blessing I think, at least for me. You know.
Yeah, I think as a community, um, kindness is what binds us all together at the end
Mm,
of the day, you know. And I mean, if we just stick to really simple principles in life,
Yeah.
and look out for each other, you know. And it somehow seems that you know the sort of media seems very staged sometimes, and the newspapers and that it seems to be like churning out this fear-driven stuff. I suppose through COVID, I really felt for elderly people and elderly people living alone or elderly couples. And, you know, they were told not to come out to cocoon and staying in and just watching the news. And it was like the death call every evening and stuff. And I really felt for them, you know.
Yeah.
And I reached out to a few people that I know just to check in and see if they were okay. And, you know, and I don't know. That's quite worrying. It's quite worrying that people are living like that in 2020. You know.
Yeah. When we're all about equality and, you know, and
But are
being.
we? But are we?
This is the thing. I don't know.
Are we?
I don't see it
Are
now.
we? You know, we sort of say all this stuff. You know.
Mm.
Well, where is it really happening? You know. The
Yeah.
same with like racism. Racism is rife in Ireland. You know.
Of course it is. Yeah.
It really is, you know, and people turn a blind eye and he said that and it's okay. And, you know, it's not okay.
Mm.
We really need to grow up. You know,
Absolutely.
we really need to grow up and start looking out for each other, you know?
Yeah. Because the government
Yeah.
isn't going to look out for you. The government only care about the statistics and, okay, is this rolling? Is this all right? Is this the, you know, is our stats as a country better than the other stats of, say, another country? How are we doing? But if people are miserable, then that's just that, like, unless people rise up and go and protest, but then we're people, they're always saying like, okay, this is what we want you to hear. Like, yeah, okay, grand, you're right. As a society, you're right. Or as a community of people, you're right.
Yeah, as a population, we're Irish. Politically, we're European.
Mm.
We take a lot of directive from the European Union. I mean, that's who's calling the shots from
Yeah.
what I can see. But I'm standing well out, you know, looking in. As far away as possible, actually.
But I think a lot of people are more. Some people seem to be just a lot. Right? Okay, they're woken and they're awake in terms of what the media is telling them. But does that really have a bearing on your life? It's like if there was a, how do I say this? If there is unrest in America, does that affect your life sitting in Mayo or me sitting in Westmeath? Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Is that a problem? Like, if years ago we wouldn't have known of all the trouble in America, we wouldn't have known the trouble in, only if we read it on the newspaper that you get once a day, or, you know, you get in the morning, if you were lucky enough to get the paper. Whereas now it's literally beamed on our phones. Like, you could go onto Twitter and see a depressive state of the world right now, but you can choose whether you want to be in that state, or you can choose, hey, you know what, swipe off, I'm gone, I'm doing what I love doing, and that's either at the anvil or me on the guitars, or, you know.
I think in life, you know, what we can, like, I don't like the fact that you know, when I drive into town along the road, it's littered and people just fire their McDonald's wrappers out the window of the car because they can't be asked, or, you know, they've no concept of you know, respecting the environment, you know. But I haven't got time to go and pick up all that rubbish, you know, because I'd spend my life doing it. But what I can do is I can make sure that I don't do it.
Yeah.
So the analogy is like, if I keep my side of the street clean, you know, and do the
Yeah.
best I can do, you know, and show up and be the best person I can be, you know,
Mm.
and have that spirit about me. And that's the best that I can do. You know, we're here for a very short time. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
we're here for a really short time, and you know, I want to enjoy it. I really want to enjoy this journey, and you know, I really have done. You know, I've
Mm.
had, you know, I've had my ups and downs in life, but I've had some great times. I've
But
met
you see,
fantastic
that's being
people.
a human. You know, you're a human being. We all make mistakes. We all live. We all have our good days and our bad days, and you know, it's like if you choose to be now. You know, I'm not saying like mental health that kind of thing. It's not a choice for some people, but it's certainly it can be helped with the people that you're surrounded by, whether that's a good positive influence or not. But you can only influence people at a certain amount until they're like, okay, I need to wake up and cop on it, and because your actions today affect tomorrow, next week, and next month, next year.
Mm.
You know?
I think you lead by example, you know.
Yeah,
If people see that you're consistent in a way of life, they might look at you and think, hey, that might be something I could do. Maybe that would benefit me, you
yeah,
know. And especially for the younger people and our, you know, younger members of our families and stuff, that we are consistent, you know, and we are passing on a good message, and we are breaking old cycles of behavior and patterns that were probably socially acceptable at some point for
mm,
whatever reason, but they're not today. And they, you know, they won't run, and they won't serve anybody moving forward, you know.
mm,
So I think that's been an important part of my life, you know,
yeah,
to try and as well to get rid of those method programs that we pick up as kids and young people at a time when we're very easily influenced.
yeah,
We pick up a lot of stuff, and maybe from uncles, aunts, brothers, sisters, family, you know.
mm,
Like in Ireland, you see a lot of people, they'll vote for a political party because their father voted for them, and they won't,
yeah.
you know, they won't change. So
And
they're not allowed.
I've only had that recently with my own family. Like my granny was like, "Now you're voting for this party." I'm like, "Hang on, why would I?" When that's that's completely the whole generation brainwashing thing. You know,
Yeah,
it's like respect the priest, but it's like, hang on now, we know that the priest was a bad person. Not saying all of them, but I'm
yeah,
saying we know what that church stands for, you know, and it's like you can't sometimes when young people speak out against authority, it's like, oh, you're living dangerously, or oh, you're so influenced by the corrupted cycle. But are they really, or are they just woke to a new way of thinking and free thinkers? And sometimes that's dangerous.
well, I think everybody has a unique model of this world based on their own life experiences, you know, and what
Yeah,
they've gone through and what they've experienced. And it's it's culminated in them having a set of data in their mind, yeah,
yeah, right, yeah.
that informs an internal dialogue that they, you know, that guides them. And, you know, there's no doubt some people have come through some really, really difficult times, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And I don't know if our society looks after those people as good as we could, you know. People get branded very quickly, you know. People don't, they see an illness before they see the person, and they identify with the illness rather than the human being.
True,
Uh,
yeah.
and we can get lost in that, you know. We can get very lost.
When you look at the massive state buildings that were built in like I'm talking about mental institutions in Ballinasloe, the one in Mullingar. If you were talking to yourself, that's where you would go. And there was no, like we know so much now, where it's, and over the last couple of years, but people have brought it on themselves to say, look, this is what I'm going through. If I can help one person and that one person helps two people, then that's what I want to do, you know?
Yeah.
It is quite scary to think like years ago if you had a mental illness you were just branded as um sick and you were put away and you were never looked after or you were given medication. We're so fond of handing medication out like
Yeah, it's
rather
something
than
that I
with the
do
problem.
worry about, you know,
Mm.
people going to the doctor and come back like with a bag, you know, a bag of prescription drugs. It's a
Yeah,
massive industry, you know, and it's
huge.
an industry I'm highly suspicious of. You know, how do you trust the people that profit on your illness? You know, they need you to be ill to do good business.
Yeah.
You know, I ain't listening to them. I'm sorry. You know,
But
but
prevention's a lot better than the
they're
cures.
the best motivator, like the Irish A&E. Yeah, they're the best motivator for staying well that you'll ever need.
Yeah,
Spend a day in
absolutely.
A&E, and that's no. I'm looking at the system. I'm not looking at individuals. I've been in A&E. I've been in hospital, and here in Mayo, and the nurses and all were fantastic. They just could not do enough for you. You know, they were actually genuine vocations. You know, they were
Mm.
going way above and beyond anything they needed to do for me. However, they were restricted by the equipment they had, by the, you know, by the funding available, you
Again,
know,
yeah, yeah.
and you know, it's a sort of a sad indictment. I just heard today somewhere, maybe on the van radio, going to town, that the government are plowing money into the HSE now. You know, 400
So
million,
late.
300 million. You
It's
know,
so late. It should have been done 10 years ago, 5 years ago, when
yeah.
mental health services are on their knees, when people are. I think this year is the. I'm not sure now on this, but like suicide rates are so high now. Where's the funding?
I
But
think
yeah,
statistically more people have died from suicide than actually COVID.
yeah, right. It's
And
insane.
I think, you know, I don't want to misquote, but I think what I read was that a lot of people have died with COVID as a diagnosis, yeah, but they
Mm.
haven't actually died from COVID.
Yeah, it's like
It
an
wasn't
underlying
COVID, it was a
illness.
contributory factor, maybe,
Yeah,
or in some cases, it wasn't at all. You know, people had like heart problems or different illnesses, and my heart goes out, you know, my condolence to any family who
absolutely.
lost anybody, you know, from that COVID. I'm not making light of it at all, but
Yeah, no, we're in a terrible situation.
I think
Yeah.
statistically, um, I think there was 100 people that the COVID-19 virus actually killed, and that was the cause of death
Mm.
out of all the people. And it seems really, really strange that there's such a massive reaction to that amount of deaths, because I think more people have killed themselves as a
Yeah.
result of losing their business, losing their home, losing their jobs, losing their way of life, and not having the wherewithal to be able to overcome it.
Mm. What I'll do is I'll ring you back. This is going to cut out on me. I'll ring you right back.
Okay,
Just give me 2 seconds there, guys. Thanks.
no worries.
Grant, Grant.
I'd rather go out thinking, you know, what am I bringing to the world? You know, how am I showing up for life? What am I doing? How is it impacting people? You
Yeah.
know, what am I bringing to the party? You know,
Mm.
and so many people, you know, it's a mentality of wanting to take all the time, and you know, to own stuff and covet stuff. But
Mm.
you know, I
People are
think,
so entitled to stuff. It's like I'm entitled to that, so give me that kind of mentality. Yeah.
yeah, it's, you know, your sort of belief system doesn't make you a good person. You know, it's your behavior does. Your behavior shows who you are, and you know what you're bringing to life. And you know, people can talk a great game, a great story, you know, but are they you know, are they walking the talk? Are they living that life? You know,
Mm.
and I think that's always been something that's come to me. You know,
I think like too, it's like how we are perceived ourselves online is how we are in reality too. You know, like I could be this professional podcast person online, but I could be a complete opposite in real life. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And
Well,
you know, we need
I
to be.
think we all create some sort of persona for online. You know, I think it sort of happens automatically. You
Mm,
know, um, you know, we want to present in a good light. You know,
yeah,
um, not going to put up the worst picture you've ever seen of yourself as your profile picture, are you? You're going to look for the best one, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Or maybe you're not.
I guess it depends on how comfortable you
Maybe
are.
you're the guy who just flicks the button and doesn't care, you know?
Mm.
Maybe we need to talk to that guy.
Absolutely. I think like we all need to be that person, is like being comfortable with who you are, by how you look. Because like even going to the needle for fixing wrinkles or whatever. Now I know I wouldn't care like myself, but there's people out there that are like, then you want it to be pristine and look amazing, and that's fine if that's what makes you happy. But what happens when that isn't available, or like what happens if that just does not work out for you in the future? Like, where does it
Look,
go?
age.
Mm,
Age is going to deal with all of us, you know?
mm,
And I think that, you know, it doesn't matter what you do, you know? You know, look down the road. We all deteriorate in some way. So isn't it better to be a person on the inside, because you always have that beauty. You always take it with you, you know? It
yeah,
doesn't matter what you look like at 21, you know? By 40, it's changed. By 60, it's changed, you know?
absolutely.
You know, that's just life, you know?
Yeah,
And people will easily forget. Like they forget, you know, what car you bought, you know? You buy a new car, you drive around the neighborhood, you know?
yeah.
So it's old news really quickly. People forget, you know, really quickly. But
But
you know, at the end of your life, if we sat down together, me and you,
mm,
and I said, "Hey, Ciaran, here you go. Here's a video of your whole life, everything you ever said and done and taught.
mm.
Would you enjoy living it over?"
Yeah, I guess to a certain extent, but
Exactly. So that's
probably
the
the
way.
good parts, but never the bad parts. So
That's
there's,
probably the way I view life, and I think, you know, I know, but it doesn't matter, because life is going to throw things at you. You know, people are going to come, people are going to die, people are going to be broke, people are going to be rich. You know, people are getting married, people are getting divorced. Life happens,
mm,
and you're only defined by how you react to what life throws at you. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
you won't be defined for the stuff that happens to you. You know, but you will be defined for how you react to it.
react to it. Yeah,
And I think in life, that's sort of the journey we're on. You know.
absolutely. Yeah. I think people struggle though to cope with that kind of thing because they don't know what it's like to have that personal, like, I think everybody kind of, we're at a stage where we're sharing everything, probably a bit too much. Like, I'm never going to take a picture of my dinner and post it online. I do the odd time, but I'm never going to say, look, I'm having a really bad day. We probably should be having that conversation, but just seems that we overshare everything, and it's, you know, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't really know how I feel about it. Like, you know.
I know, but the whole thing is, you know, you're not going to show. If you made a beautiful dinner and it looked really pleasing to the eye, you know,
Mm,
you'd probably feel like, oh yeah, I'll show people this, but you're not going to show them, you know, the banana and toast you have before you went to bed.
yeah, yeah,
You
that's
know
it.
what I mean? And that's
Yeah,
that's just life, you know.
yeah,
Um, and because it's so visual, and because like at the press of a button, I think, you know, I've got so many followers or whatever, you know, so a high volume of people could see exactly what I'm doing in the day.
mm,
And I suppose there's a propensity to, you know, show yourself in your best light,
mm.
you know. Maybe that's just our ego, you know.
But
I,
like,
I,
what?
I would
Yeah,
like to think that I can say, you know, this is what's really going on for me. And I've done it, you know.
yeah,
This is what's really going on for me. And this is what's happening in my life. And you'll find, you know, that people will come back to you with the most, you know, beautiful responses and loving, caring responses. And maybe we don't do enough of that. Maybe we've got so many fears and so many boundaries and borders and barriers built up around us that we're constantly trying to protect that vulnerable side of ourselves. And I think it's an instinctive thing that we do,
Mm.
you know? And like I said about breaking old cycles, that's what we need to do, you know?
I think like when you look at somebody online, it's like maybe you should be more authentic, but it gets to a point where they're afraid nearly to like open up and again break down the boundary. Where it's like I'm afraid to be. Some people would be afraid to be vulnerable because it seems weak, seems like a sign of weakness. Whether you're just trying to make aware of what's going on, or maybe make aware of why you're having a bad day, but people maybe are probably more afraid of that side of themselves, you know.
Yeah, I think the directive is that, you know, we're all trying to have this amazing life, you know,
Yeah,
and we want to paint a picture of it, you know. I think a great training ground for any counselor, if I was teaching people counseling skills, I would part of their exercise, I would make them go on a dating site
okay,
for 3 months, because you'll end up, you know, with a diverse group of people to counsel on there. I mean, and people, they, you know, they're so insecure,
yeah,
you know, and there's so much insecurity and people looking for perfection, you
yeah,
know, in a world full of imperfections. Um, I tried it. I tried online dating.
yeah.
I just ended up doing free counseling service on there. Honestly, I'm serious.
But how does it work when we're all again when we could be having the best days of our lives and meet these people on dating sites? Whatever happened to just talking to someone at a bar or at a nightclub or at a restaurant? Whatever happened to that interaction?
Too busy on Instagram to talk to anybody.
Is it? Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I did, I did, I did see a sign at a cafe a while back, and it said, "No Wi-Fi available. Just talk to each other."
Yeah, yeah. I know. I was in a cafe yesterday myself, and there were a group of four friends, and they're all sitting down having coffee, but they weren't talking to you. They were taking pictures of their coffee, like you
Yeah,
know. And again, it just seems to be I'm having a coffee, you know, status. This is all it's like. I have to be seen to be doing something, otherwise I'm doing nothing. You know,
yeah, of course.
we've turned into in kind of like a sheep, like follow the herd kind of thing. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but I just feel like we can all do our own thing without having to document it all the time.
I think if somebody's on a different frequency to you in life, they just won't hear you no matter what you're saying.
Yeah,
And I think people will come around to changing when they feel safe enough to do so, or when things get so desperate that they have to, you know.
yeah, yeah,
Um, like I said, I always bring it back to the individual. We can only do the best we can do, and hopefully that will have a positive effect on definitely the ones we love and the greater community that we live in.
yeah. Well, I think it's quite interesting, even, and I have to say that one of the good things about Facebook and Instagram is looking back on your memories, like what you did this time last year, and seeing how much you've changed or how much your views have changed as a person. I
Mm.
think like with social media and even with like social how the world is now socially, like if social media wasn't around, would we be the same people that we were 5 years ago, 4 years, you know what I mean? Because so
Well,
the
I grew
social
up at a
aspects
time when there was no social media, there was no mobile phone, you know,
mm,
and I a good point about social media, even Facebook, was it put me in touch with a lot of people that I would have never been able to meet again. It has some really positive
Oh, absolutely.
aspects to it, and it's very positive in the sense that you can reach so many people. You know, I can sit here and speak to somebody in Australia, you
Yeah.
know, the same as I'm speaking to you, and that's fantastic, you know.
Well, that's the thing, and a lot of people can use it for good and use it to contact family that they probably haven't seen in years. But there's a lot of nonsense on it too, and I think it's important to find that, yeah, find that
It's
line. You know,
it's just a reflection of what's happening in life,
yeah,
you know. You know, it's the same. It's the same people that showing up in life, you know.
yeah,
You got that whole group. Um, Before we cut off, I just wanted to mention my colleagues, the Irish Artists Blacksmiths Association.
nice.
We're a group of blacksmiths, based in all over Ireland, and we meet up a couple of times a year. Well, we did until COVID and knocked it on the head, but
Right.
we meet up and share best practice and do some projects around the country and stuff like that, and have little festivals here and there. And they're a great bunch of guys and girls, you know.
Right.
It's a really nice association, and it's actually, you know, at the forefront of keeping heritage ironwork alive, keeping blacksmithing as a craft and as a trade alive. And there's some, if anybody wants to go on the IABA website, IABA, Irish Blacksmiths Association, you'll see incredible work been done by blacksmiths in Ireland
Good
today.
stuff.
You know, today, not from the past, today.
Good.
And a mix of old stuff and new contemporary stuff that's absolutely wonderful. So I didn't want to go without mentioning my
No, yeah,
colleagues, you know.
absolutely. So your social is at Patrick Strahan, and your website then is, what's your website?
9ironscraft.ie.
Good stuff. Do you ever think in the near future that we'll be in the same area again, banging on anvils and doing,
Yeah,
you know, hopefully sooner rather
I
than
think
later,
so.
you know?
You know, so we got to see what happens and how this progresses, and see where it all goes. But at the moment, all we can do is sit and wait, do the best we can. If there's anybody in our community that needs a bit of support or help, you know, do it. Observe the guidelines, and try to keep everybody safe. You know,
Yeah.
there's not much more we can do. We can have our opinions, and we can read up, and we can have, you know, start forming opinions or forming complaints. At the end of the day, we've all still got to try and make a living somehow, you know.
I think we
I
all.
suppose the government are lucky we're busy making a living, because if we sat down to think about it, we'd probably have a lot more questions than we have answers.
Yeah. I think as well as what's important too is finding a new way of living and finding a new way of, as you said, reinventing your own wheelhouse and trying to get out of your own comfort zone. Thank you so much for coming on as well. It's been
It's lovely, man.
It's been great
to see you.
chatting.
Great to talk to you.
Yeah, and I hope you're keeping well. And I can see that you're doing your thing. You're happy, and that's what matters.
All is well, you know.
Yeah.
I'm grateful every day for what I have.
Next time you're up in our area, we should definitely meet up, have a cup of coffee, or, you know.
Definitely.
Because again, it's important, and I know we are social now, being online, but I feel like we have lost the human touch a little bit, which is important to keep.
Yeah, of course.
You know.
Of course.
Yeah, listen again. So if you can run through, so the Irish Blacksmith Society, is it?
Association.
Association.
IABA.
IABA.
If you forget it, you can think of Irish Amateur Boxing Association.
Right.
If you put it in Google, they'll probably come up first, and we'll come up second.
Yeah. And then the 9ironworks.ie
Nine Irons Craft.
9 Irons Craft. Sorry. .ie.
.ie. Yeah.
Good stuff. It's been a great chat. It's been an
Thanks,
absolute
Ciaran.
pleasure. Thank you so much for coming
Wish you
on.
well. Thanks for inviting me on.
No bother, absolutely. It's great.
Okay.
Again.
Let's do it again one time, yeah?
No bother. Yeah, all right, man. Cheers.
Okay.
See you
Bye
later,
for
guys.
now.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Bye bye.